Hello there, Michelle here, and I'm back with another card using Create a Smile products. I've started off with some Tim Holtz watercolour cardstock, and I've cut that with a little Inca Designs stitched rectangle die, and I'm just prepping my surface here with the EK Success powder tool because I'm going to be doing some embossing. So I've taken the large flower image from the Botanical Love set from Create a Smile, and I'm stamping that with some Versamark ink because I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to be doing some embossing, and this is a really good sticky ink to hold embossing powder with. So this is the Hero Arts white embossing powder. It's one of my favourites, and I'm adding that on top. Obviously it's difficult to see in camera, but it's definitely there, and I'm just getting rid of some of the extra granules with a dry brush. And then I'm going to heat set that with my heat tool from Stampin' Up. I'm just adding the rest of the embossing powder back into the pot there. So you want to try and, if you're using the Stampin' Up heat tool, you want to try and keep it quite hot before you use it to try and prevent some of the warping. I didn't do that here and it has warped it slightly. But I'm taking my Epicurean board here and I'm just adding my panel on top with some 3M micropore tape. This is really good for adding things down because it doesn't rip your cardstock when you lift it up. However, as the name suggests, it is porous, so that you don't want to use it for masking, because whatever you put on top, any ink or watercolor or anything will actually seep through it. But like I said, I just want to hold it down just to prevent any further warping. So now I'm going to watercolor the image, and I'm using distress markers for this. And to create a softer look, instead of going direct to cardstock, I've got a pot of water above kind of like where my board is, and I've got a paintbrush obviously, which you can see here, and I've added some of the distress marker onto an acrylic block here that's on the side of me to the left, and I'm adding the marker in that way just to give it a softer look. So I'm going to try and get a darker kind of gradient into the center of the flower, and it seeps out to create a lighter colour further towards the end of the petals. So I started off using the cracked pistachio distress marker, and then now I'm adding in some peacock feathers into the centre. And like I said, I'm just using some extra water just to kind of seep it into the outside portions of the petals, just to make them lighter. And then I've taken Evergreen Bough, which I'm adding into the centres because I wanted that a little bit darker, and it's a really, really pretty colour that coordinates with the other two. I do actually go in again afterwards and add in some Broken China because I wanted it just a little bit darker. But I've started off with the inside here, and this is Broken China, which again, a really, really pretty colour. I do actually go in again and add some Salty Ocean to it because I did decide that I wanted it even darker than it was. So I'm kind of just fiddling around with this, adding more kind of as I feel like it. And this is where I've added in the extra Broken China to the inside portions. And here I'm just using tumbled glass, and I'm actually using a lot of water here. I've kind of wet the area first, and then I'm adding in the distress marker afterwards, and I want it really, really pale so that it kind of fades out into white, so you can see it close up to the flower, but you can't kind of see it sort of on the actual card panel itself, if that makes sense. Just wanted a really kind of nice light wash, and I'm taking off my tape as I kind of go along. So I've left that to dry. And then I'm taking this sentiment here, which is from the Friends in the Wood set, and I'm inking it up with some Tuxedo Black ink onto the same Tim Holtz watercolour cardstock. And I have cut that out off screen, my head got in the way, so I obviously didn't want to show that. But here I've got a cardstock base which I've made from Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock, and I'm putting tons and tons of ATG onto the back of my panel here that I've watercoloured because it has warped slightly, and I'm using a bit of fun foam here to add to the back. In the UK it's actually called funky foam, but I believe the rest of the world call it fun foam, so I will call it fun foam. This is really good if you're, especially for watercoloured images, because it tends to hold the kind of the panel a lot flatter, I suppose. So I'm adding some more ATG to the back of the foam. If you use it really, really slowly, you can add it onto it instead of adding it to the cardstock. However, you do have to, like I said, add it slowly, but I'm adding a little bit extra onto the card base as well, just because I want to make sure that it really, really sticks down well. So I'm adding that panel on top, and I'm really pushing down to make sure that that foam sticks. I could do with some kind of stronger adhesive, which I have actually ordered. So this is the sentiment little strip here, and I'm going to add that on with some 3M foam tape. I'm just going to cut some really tiny strips to add onto the back of it. And I'm going to leave a tiny little gap to the right hand side just because I know that I want to add a sequin popped underneath it, and I don't want to kind of then pop it up even further with the sequin, if that makes sense. So I'm just making a little gap there so I know I've got the space. And these are the sequins. These are the little doodlebug sequins. I've picked out 2 that I think coordinate with the image, and I'm using my multi-medium matte. It's a really strong adhesive, which is really good for sequins. So for the top one, I'm adding it onto the actual back of the sequin itself because I want to, like I said, pop it underneath, and it'd be a little bit more difficult to get the adhesive under that if I didn't add it to the sequin itself. And for this one, I'm just popping a little bit of the adhesive onto the actual card base itself. Excuse me. And then I've taken some Stampin' Up! Rhinestones. I'm just going to use one of these as a little accent. I like to do things in 3s. So I'm just adding that on with my little pokey tool or piercing tool, whatever you want to call it. And just popping that on there. And then I'm taking the Wink of Stella clear glitter pen. I'm just adding that into the tiny little dots here in the centre of the image. And that's my card for today, and I've got a few photos here to show you. I'll have links to everything that I've used in the description bar here on YouTube and also on my blog. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.